Hello again. So, is Zwift good for training for mountain bike events or mountain bike endurance type events? Well, yeah, I think it is. It's pretty good. Um, Not necessarily Zwift, but any sort of indoor training can be very effective for off-road type events. The reason is that it's much easier to develop riding fitness on non-technical terrain. If you ride on technical terrain all the time, then you've got to focus on using a certain amount of energy to concentrate on, keeping your balance, looking where you're going, and all those other factors. And also, because the terrain's quite variable, then you get slight ups and downs and slight variations in pace, which is obviously really useful and really important to train for that. But if you're looking to just develop your fitness, your endurance, your FTP, for want of a sort of fashionable term, then it's better to sort of decouple the endurance side, to decouple the fitness side with the technical side, and then bring it together once you've developed the fitness. Do the skills at a lower speed where you're not looking to worrying about training your fitness, and then bring them together to do some more specific type efforts, which might be training races, or they might be circuits that you've set up, or Strava segments are a great way to bring your fitness and your skills back together. So obviously you could do these efforts on the road if you've got a suitable area to train on. We're very lucky here in the French Pyrenees. We've got roads of quite nice gradients, and even fire roads of quite nice gradients that are easy to train on. But if you don't have that and you're going to do an event with long climbs, then the indoor training is a perfect way of doing it, because you can do sort of long sustained efforts. And in the interest of training a gaming environment like Zwift, it's a bit more interesting. It has climbs and descents, so you can use those for your training if you want to do things like, I like a thing I call it an endurance tempo ride, where you do tempo on the climbs and ride endurance on the flats and recover on downhills. And Zwift is perfect for that sort of thing, as long as you don't get carried away and start trying to race people, because then that negates the benefit of the training. And it also has a facility to do structured workouts. If you use a tool like Training Peaks to create structured workouts, they go straight into Zwift. And obviously there are other things like Kino Maps, nice, RGT, Ride Grand Tours. There are many different apps. Zwift's the most popular and perhaps the most developed for all-round things. Well, I like it anyway. Indoor trainers often have power meters, and if you're going to use something like Zwift, then you need either a power meter on your bike, a power meter on the trainer, or a calibrated trainer. So if you use a speed sensor on your back wheel, they work well, and you get an equivalent of power. So it means you've got that structured power. You can train to power, which is really effective and probably a lot better than heart rate, I think. And you can do your endurance rides outside where you don't need power. You can just work on heart rate. So training to power for your structured sessions where you're doing short efforts and heart rate doesn't work is really a useful feature of these indoor training environments. You can't fall off an indoor trainer. Well, you can if you get really tired, or if you get really enthusiastic. But in general, you're not going to fall off. So you can do sort of low cadence type efforts to build your strength, the amount of torque you can produce. And this is really important for off-road type riding. Mountain biking, you sometimes have a step. You sometimes actually, or you have to stop pedaling for some reason. You just do a bit of a track stand and power on, and that requires a lot of force to be applied. And if you're in the wrong gear, you can't change gear when you're going slowly up a hill. So you just have to sort of muscle through. And training for that can be done on the indoor trainer, whereas outdoors you might fall off, or you might not be able to find suitable features or things like that. So that's really useful. So the other thing is short recoveries. So when you're mountain biking, you might not need to do sort of a hard effort, and the most effective place to do hard effort is on hills. But if you're on a hill, then it's very difficult to have a recovery. If you're doing, say, you're having a recovery of less than a minute, then you can't really turn round, go back down, turn round again, particularly if you're on a narrow trail or single track, which might be your most enjoyable area to train on. So if you do that type of session on the indoor trainer, you can even have like 10 or 15 second recoveries, and that can be quite an effective way of training, like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. Maybe 10 to 15 of those 30-second efforts with short recoveries can make a huge difference to your fitness quite quickly. So it's a really efficient way of training. It's very difficult to do that outside. So this brings on to, mountain biking is much more variable than riding on the road. So you need to do high intensity efforts, and those can be a lot better done on the trainer. So, for instance, I'll explain this a bit more. So on the road, if you're doing an endurance bike on the road, if you've got the right gear in, then there's no reason for you to ever go above your training zone 3, because the roads are generally smoothly graded. They might have little steep sections, but in general it's quite smooth. Excuse me. Whereas out on a mountain bike, you're going to have short steep sections where you really have to push quite hard, or if you get into some sort of technical difficulty, then you have to work really hard, and then you're sort of, you're quite anaerobic. And of course you have to train for that because it's unavoidable, and you don't want to be getting off and walking every time you get a short technical feature. It's much better to sort of ride it, and because if you train the anaerobic capacity, then you get it back. It's not like if you go above your FTP and use up your glycogen reserves. You'd have to take a day or two to replenish your glycogen reserves. Your anaerobic capacity recovers in a few minutes. So if you train yourself to go hard and recover, that's quite that's worthwhile. It's worth spending a bit of time doing that. And doing that on an indoor trainer is really efficient. Like I said, you can do 30 on, 30 off, or something like that. VO2 max type workouts, 3 to 5 minutes at the as hard as you can with the same recovery, so 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, really good maximal aerobic power type sessions. And they also bring on your threshold power, and obviously they bring on everything below that. So I should say, if you like these videos, please give me a like. It's really helpful for me. It makes me a bit more motivated to produce them, and it means it gets spread more widely and other people can benefit, which is the point of me making them, really. So how do you specifically, it's worth spending some time working out what to do, like if you're doing a really mountainous event, then what's the longest climb, what do you have to sustain a climb for, like, and it might be that you want to ride sort of, what's it called, Alp de Zwift at your tempo pace, and that will give you a good simulation of your climb in your event. And it's not on a loose surface. You don't have to worry about weather conditions. You don't have to deal with additional factors which might be altitude, which you can acclimatise for separately. And maybe I should make a video about that. So if you want a video about altitude and that type of thing, then please let us know. It's a great place to acclimatise, just up the road here at Fontenoy. And that will give you an idea of what to do. And it's best to do sort of a good mix of training, keep training all your systems together, but focus on one thing at once. So for instance, you might want to build a bit of an endurance base, so you increase your volume. Then you might want to build up that ability to climb the long climbs. So you might maintain the volume but introduce some tempo work so that you gradually build up to doing the duration of your longest climb in tempo. You might do it split it up into 30-minute segments with 5 minutes recoveries. Or you might go for it and really see if you can do the full duration. But also you need to still be including your 3-minute efforts, your 30-second efforts in maybe a 3-week block or a 4-week block. And then you might shift your focus to build that anaerobic capacity that I talked about. Maybe 30 seconds on with a few minutes recovery, so that you're really working your anaerobic system, and 30 on, 30 off type workouts, and your maximal aerobic, whereas where I mentioned earlier with 3 to 5 minute efforts with 3 to 5 minutes of recovery. And that's pretty much it. So like I say, It's great to get out, mix it up a bit. The way I would usually do it with my athletes, and obviously myself as well, is use the indoor trainer during the week for really focused sessions where you've got a bit less time. It's much more time efficient. We'll use that to work on your speed and your anaerobic capacity, and things that aren't so easy to do outside, and then go and have a bit of fun at the weekend and build your endurance. And that's pretty much it. So I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.